Hi, I'm Joseph Murphy. Very soon I'll be teaching magic to Canadians, and this is a magic trick. Canada has a problem with racism. Black people and Indigenous people have been trying to get your attention for a while. Like me, Joseph Murphy. Rachel Gilmore is talking about this, and I have a feeling that very soon she's going to be talking about me. Because very soon, the House of Commons is going to comment on me. How do I know? Well, I'm about 2 days from releasing a documentary exposing just how racist the Ford government is. And then in the same time, I'm going to reveal a business plan that will create thousands of jobs in Ontario. And then you'll have to make a decision. Which is more important to you? Job creation or white supremacy? Now, I'm willing to bet that it's going to be on job creation, and I will get a lot of attention very quickly. And the House of Commons is going to be asked to report on what do you think about Joe Murphy. Mark Carney is going to be asked what he thinks about me and what happened to me. And if it's not brought up in the House of Commons, if they're not willing to comment on what happens to Black people in this country, but they're willing to give a standing ovation for Charlie, well, then I think we'll know everything we need to know. Right about now, you're asking yourself, who the is Joseph Murphy? Now, there is the version of me that you can see online, but to get to really know me, you need to ask someone who knows me as a person. So to answer that, we'll play a game called Kevin Bacon. Or you could just ask Doug Ford about me. Luckily, he's now known all around the world. Math and statistics say we're connected within 6 degrees of separation. This is perfectly illustrated by the movie called Flatliners. Here's my 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon was in a movie called Flatliners with Kiefer Sutherland. Kiefer Sutherland went back to Nova Scotia after breaking up with Julia Roberts and spent time with a woman who is friends with my ex-boyfriend, who I will call Gerhardt. And Gerhardt is very important to this story. The lesson is that working class artists connect all of society. The concept of a small world was also dealt with in 6 Degrees of Separation, featuring Will Smith. One of my former students was an extra in a film with Will Smith, and everyone in the area knows Cindy's. Kerrville, Texas was recently in the news. A weekend there changed my entire life, and I met an actor who went on to become a politician. It was in Kerrville that I met Ed Foreman and a very special type of magic, a type used in sales and in politics. Everything I know about sales, I learned from Jeff Shaw, who just so happens to work in commercial real estate. It's also lucky that I know this man, Owen Crampsey. There's only 9 members on this board, and I'm lucky enough to know one. For some reason, I've always attracted important people into my life, like this man, David Lyons. He was one of the first heads of 1 in 10. I've been interviewed several times by the CBC and Radio-Canada. I only became invisible when I talked about racism. But writers are powerful. This is a lesson I learned from one of my old teachers, Alistair MacLeod. It's because of him that I stopped writing poetry and started writing fiction. He truly was one of the best, but a very boring lecturer. It's like I learned everything I know about the monarchy from Chris, an ex-boyfriend, who just so happened to have worked for the lieutenant governor and knew Mike Harris. Mike Harris might remember this moment. Luckily for me, if Mark Carney wants my number, Eric has it. Eric, you remember that I informed you last year that your name came up in a grievance because I made a mistake. I have connections to every person you see here, and the only person who has offered to help me was Terrace. Gemma Gray Hall knows about my case. She has yet to comment. Gemma, you remember that you told me if I want to be a leader, I have to lead. Lisa Gretzky was the officiant at my wedding. I have reached out to her often. She has a very clear paper trail of everything I'm talking about. So does Andrew. And you'll notice in the paper trail, I was very kind to them because I could see the future and knew that I would be working with them one day. talk to Pat Blaze and have him talk to Janine, and we can settle this very quickly. I have connections to many people on City Council. The only person I don't have connections to is Mark. Luckily, Mark made national news recently when he was dropped by the Conservative Party for saying that Justin Trudeau should be killed. This is Christopher Lawrence Menard, someone I've known for a very long time. He can verify everything I'm saying is true. As of yet, Christopher has not made a comment on what happened to me. Just like everyone knows that my best friend was James Marentet, son of Rolly Marentet, one of the greatest Labour leaders in Canadian history. I went to Rolly's funeral. The eulogy was given by Ken Luenza. It was beautiful, long, but beautiful. Until I started talking about racism, I had many friends, including Brad, who knows Brian. And if you're from Vegas, you know Brian. Brad, more than anyone, can prove I have never presented myself to be an expert on UFOs. Now, Brad was able to get me a signed autograph by Travis Walton, best known for the Fire in the Sky movie. Just before the pandemic, we had a viewing party for Travis's movie. I haven't met Travis Walton, but Brad did. It's just a small world. My career in the arts started with Ernie Gerenda and the Windsor Community Concert Band. I remember with Tamia saying at the Cleary Auditorium, Tamia won't remember me, but Sabin might. And everyone knows Sabin. Just like everyone knows Dan McDonald. And Dan McDonald is apparently waiting for some reason to cover this story. I'm pretty sure every drag queen in existence knows Lawrence. And Lawrence, that offer still does apply. But not to Boa. And Boa knows why. I did not have many connections to the movie industry, just a former coworker who was working as a screenplay writer and producer. But as soon as I decided it was time to make movies, the universe responded and I started making connections. So many connections, it was weird. There's only a few people acting in this movie, and one of them has a cousin that works at CERN. One knows someone that worked on the Bob and Doug McKenzie series, and apparently everyone in the world knows Gavin Booth except for me. I haven't met Madonna yet, but I did go to Menjo's all the time, and her home is only a few minutes away from mine. My mother's hairdresser had a son who was a working actor, and he's worked with all my heroes. It's also a coincidence that Madonna is also teaching a course on magic at the same time I am. It's also a lucky coincidence that after I broke up with Gerhardt and moved back to Windsor, Marion Williamson started teaching at a church near me. I never had the courage to speak with her then, and I've always regretted it, which makes this all the more strange. It is Saturday, October 25th. I have just finished watching this video with Marion Williamson talking about the voice she heard at the Jefferson Memorial, which I suspect is possibly the Holy Ghost that many of us are hearing, because we're all getting the same message. But as I was listening to her, I got, I think, the next part of the thermodynamics of interpersonal relationships, because I started seeing how why it is important for us to just stand, because the expectation is we will get into line. And I started thinking of, like, again, individual people as like baubles of energy. And if we're just baubles of energy and we believe we're supposed to line up and just accept authoritarianism, that's what we'll do, is we'll start lining up. And we know what happens when you see people line up. There is a psychological thing that happens. We see people line up and we line up too. But if we see people get out of line, we get out of line too. And was it Alex Bornstein gave that famous speech where she talked about how the only reason she's alive and received that award was because her grandmother stepped out of line. And I could see in my head humanity as just individual people on a big black chessboard. And each person has to decide how they spend their energy. And if each person just says, I'm going to wait to see what happens here, I'm not lining up anyway, that act alone will give other people permission to not get in line. And it's really that simple. Just by standing up and saying, nah, I don't think so, that act alone prevents fascism from happening because of math and because of the way our brains work. So that is a thought that I got today listening to Marianne Williamson talking about the voice she heard at Jefferson Memorial and the importance of each person just standing up and saying, nope. Now, if you're wondering what the heck is the thermodynamics of interpersonal relationship, it's a theory I'm working on that was inspired by Leibniz. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you really, really need to watch my documentary. The one that features Doug Ford, the man that just ticked off Trump. I can see the future. For real. I've just proved it. But I'm currently invisible because people think I'm talking about racism. It's hilarious. And the second someone realizes what the documentary is really about, I'm going to become very famous really quickly. And you can say, you knew me when. And for Doug Ford, I did warn you this was going to look bad. It's also lucky that the guy that taught me how to jam is Joe Conis, who used to play with the Gods and had many famous friends. Joe never brought it up, probably because to him, these are just people. And we forget, working class artists are just people. Every famous person is just someone's neighbor or best friend. Many people are creative, and creative people bond together. Someone in this picture knows someone who knows me. It's just a small world. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and this picture is on the worst day of my life, the day that I found out that I was dating a monster. It's also a sign of new beginnings. It's just a lucky coincidence that right next to me is the man that I will soon marry. And the only reason I met Lisa Gretzky is because my ex-husband is also from Brantford, and everyone from Brantford has stories about the Gretzkys. A few of my friends have had brushes with celebrity, but almost everyone I know works for the government. But even civil servants have relationships with working class artists. And that's why I've learned to be kind to every person you know, because you never know when you're going to run into a celebrity. Like when I met David. We had mutual friends, we met for drinks, and David changed the entire course of my life. Because of David, I learned to take myself as an artist seriously. I started identifying myself as an artist first. My day job didn't matter, and that's something I learned from David. Good things take time. Whether it's a career in the arts or taking over the world, you have to put in the work if you want the results. But life is often like a game. And sometimes it's like the movies. It is hard to speak about Star Trek without getting emotional, so I will stick to points of data. When I met George Takei, it was one of the highlights of my life. I was able to shake his hand and say, thank you for the work that you've done. He has used his celebrity and his voice to create social change, and that's something that every artist hopes to do. Writers are powerful, and they impact our society in ways that unfortunately often go unrecognized. But we see the people in front of the screens. Meeting Doug Jones was another highlight of my life. I'm a very lucky man. Lucky enough to be a partner in a publishing company with a friend of Philip K. Dick. I mean, I haven't even left Windsor yet. I haven't made my first movie yet, and I've still made some pretty big connections. And if anyone can tell you I am not an expert in Philip K. Dick, it's Mare. Through Mare, I did get to meet one of my other childhood heroes, John Gray. I got to work on the cover you see there. The Ghost Whisperer changed my life. And John knows nothing about this because I have not mentioned it in the slightest. Through Mare, I met Al. Al was a member of the Old Timers Guild. If you've played World of Warcraft, you might know someone from that guild. Al also met Spike Lee. Al never mentioned this. Spike Lee did a movie called Do the Right Thing, which featured music by Public Enemy. Public Enemy randomly decided to play in Windsor, Ontario. Just like Kendrick Lamar randomly decided to come jogging here recently. It's a small world. Right when UFO disclosure starts, I become a whistleblower on an issue that is completely ridiculous. I don't need your piece of paper to tell people who I am. I've been a part of this community for a long time, and everyone knows who I am. I'm just currently invisible because they don't want to have a difficult conversation, and it's time to grow up.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star. 1, 2, 3, go. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. How I wonder what you are. Up above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
I have connections that can ensure that Windsor becomes one of the world's greatest tourist destinations, but I can't talk about all of them publicly for reasons. Once upon a time, I used to go camping with a group of bears in the woods, and I met people. Many of them I cannot talk about publicly, but I can mention this guy. One time, and one time only, I met Woody, and I made a mistake. I also made a mistake dating the magician. He was a man with a handsome face and famous friends, but he was also a man with a dark past. I met Martin one time and one time only. It was in Chicago. I believe it was snowing, and I was not very smart. From the magician, I learned about Joseph Campbell and the power of myth, and I also found David Cassidy, which I now realize is the entire reason I met the magician. When I had the dream in 1990, I assumed it meant the singer David Cassidy, not the head of the Church of Priapus, but I have met David Cassidy. It's a small world. Now that's strange, but it's not as strange as this. When stories of the Diddy parties made headlines, I turned to my writer voice and said, it can't be all of them. And then I went on TikTok and saw a very strange video. Whatever Stephen Baldwin is hearing, I hear it too. It's a small world. Justin and I were born at the same hospital. Justin is from Stratford. So is Lorena McKennett. I have not met either of them, but I do know Angus. And Angus used to share an office with Lorena. And Angus is best friends with Tommy, who is very important to my story. It's a small world. Maybe I'm really lucky. Or maybe I should start taking this seriously. Because almost everything I wrote as fiction has turned out to be maybe not fiction. In 2000, I pretended to talk with the goddess and I had a vision of the future. It no longer seems like I was pretending. You don't have to be psychic to predict the future. You just have to look at the data. The data suggests I am an indigo child and that I agreed to be a channel for an entity in 2001 and then forgot. It's just a coincidence that my experiences are similar to Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's just a coincidence that Joe Locke is from the Isle of Man and my family is from the Isle of Man. Maybe it really was Agatha all along. Maybe it's just a story. Or maybe it's the others sending us a message.
all the world's your home.
This is Michael Murphy. We're not related, but he started Esalen, and the voice told me I'm supposed to start Esalen here in Windsor. Thankfully, I've been able to tell them directly. Michael published Future of the Human Body around the same time I started remembering my own experiences. Maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe we are all pulling from the same well. That's what Stephen King says in his book on writing. No one has influenced my writing more than Stephen King, not even Clive Barker, which makes it all the more annoying that this happened. Stephen King put out a tweet saying that the Epstein list was a fairy tale. At the same time, I was working on my documentary about the fairies and child predators. Now that's weird, but it's not as weird as this. I went on Facebook and made a comment about Stephen King, and Ramsey Campbell called me on my shit. It's still the weirdest thing that has ever happened to me. I had forgotten how small the world is. That's why you need to choose your words carefully, because you never know who's listening and what opportunities you might be throwing away. This is super frustrating. Now, some people are going to be shocked that Doug Ford has walked back his plan to get rid of rent control. I'm not, because I know that Doug Ford cares about public opinion. And if there is enough public outcry, he will change his mind. It just makes it so much more frustrating that after years of talking about what Doug Ford is doing to black workers inside the civil service, no one gives a shit. Like, I have been kind about the people I know in positions of power and authority who have stayed silent about what's happening to me. Because I know as soon as the story gets big, everyone is going to look at my acquaintances and say, why the hell did you not say something? Shit. Obviously, I'm still emotional about this. I'm trying not to be, but I am not an invisible person. And I'm going to release, I'm working on a video right now called Small World that's going to show everyone just how connected I am to the community here, and why it's so ridiculous that everyone, including CTV, keeps ignoring me. But again, once you see Small World, then you're going to want to see my documentaries. And then you're going to wonder, why the hell has no one listened to Joseph Murphy yet? Because I am about to be one of the most famous people on the planet. I know there's a lot of political stuff going on right now, but there's other things that are happening as well. And I think there are people that really want to know about this, but CTV wants to talk about this. I get it. Everyone believes that I'm talking just about systemic racism. And because you don't want to have that conversation, you're ignoring everything else I say. You need to wake the I can't make you listen to me, but I will say, someone is going to be wondering why the fuck you're not. Anyway, the main reason why I came on today was to record this. During meditation today, I thought about Bashar and his sacred circuitry. I believe that's what he calls it, the sacred circuitry. And I saw another creator say that they looked at these symbols and they got a download. And again, I thought that was ridiculous. But I also thought I should try it, just to make sure that it was ridiculous. And unfortunately, it did work for me. And I think I understand why. And there's a science reason why it works. It's not magic. Anyway. But as soon as I looked at these symbols, I got the next stage in thermodynamics of interpersonal relationships. And again, if you have no idea what the thermodynamics of interpersonal relationships, what that means, you really should watch my documentary. This is a movie called Minority Report, written by Philip K. Dick. I never met Philip K. Dick. But I did run a publishing company with his next door neighbor, and it's a small world. One of the concepts of Minority Report is future crime. It's a system in which a series of psychics using math and technology are able to predict the future and prevent crime from happening. Wouldn't it be super cool if someone was working on that with a group of psychics? I think that would be super cool. But yeah, let's keep talking about rent control. Let me tell you another small world detail that most of the world thinks about secret alien bases. They think about Area 51. But the truth is, the alien craft were removed from there a long time ago, and they were moved a lot closer to me. It's a small world. And maybe, just maybe, you should listen. I can't prove everything, but I can prove that I was talking about 2027 in 2023. And we filmed scenes for a movie about 2027, a good year before Bashar said anything about it. But I'm still invisible because my skin's too dark. As far as points of data go, this one is pretty hard to ignore. This is Chris's, this is the Bledsoe says, Jesus Christ. I've forgotten this guy's name. I'm sorry. This is Bledsoe Said So. It's a podcast, the son of Chris Bledsoe, talking about I shouldn't be surprised. But it's just, they don't know who the fuck I am. There is one more try. This was a mindfuck. I'm watching Bledsoe Said So. It's episode 221. It was released 6 days ago. So around the same time that I released Unbelievable, The Others, where I talked about the moon-faced tribe from Atlantis and how I had been in communication with them since the 1990s, and how I assumed it was a trick of the mind and wrote the stories as fiction. This guy has no clue who I am. This story is from a long time ago, and I have not heard it until today, and it is nearly identical to mine. You know, Chris Bledsoe was wealthy, he got ill, thought about suicide, met one of the others. Literally. Anyway, I'm coming on because I stopped at this moment. It is around the 25-minute mark where he starts talking about the little people from the woods who are, he describes as translucent and, in his words, shone like the moon. It's the moon-faced tribe from Atlantis. That's what they told me they were. And again, I never assumed it was real. I thought that I was just making up stories in my head. But if you've heard of the Bledsoes, I'm going to spend the next month or so learning everything I can about their story, because maybe if I learn more about them, I'll figure out what's actually happening to me too. And I'm still invisible. No one is covering my story in the slightest. And it's going to look really bad when someone finally realizes that I'm telling the truth. Because, like the Bledsoes are, the American government talks to the Bledsoes because they want information about the others. And it looks like I have information about the others and I'm trying to get it to the government. And you won't listen to me because of racism. Maybe it is just a coincidence that I released a documentary about the moon-faced tribe from Atlantis. At the same time he says he's never done an episode about the experiences before. I think the others sometimes help us out with tricks. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but they think this kind of stuff is funny. I'm skipping over a couple of obvious synchronicities, including the fact that this guy, and again, I can't remember his name, he's Chris Bledsoe's son. He looks like the magician, which is weird, but not as weird as this. This guy, Jesus Christ, where is he? Come on. This little guy here. He looks like Carl-Ann Sanchez. There's no way he has a statue of my imaginary friends on his mantle. It's weird.